Hey everyone, and welcome to another GameXplain Q&A. This time I'm joined by Chuggaaconroy.
Hey everybody.
And we're here to answer your questions about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, he's the only one that's actually played the game so far, so I'm just going to be the one asking the questions. And don't worry, this is all spoiler-free, and the footage you're going to be seeing is B-roll for the game sent by Nintendo themselves. And hopefully they wouldn't have spoiled anything that you guys don't want to see. Let's hope. I haven't actually watched it that closely myself, but let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, I love the show of confidence from you there, Chugga.
No, I just mean like every Nintendo game that comes out, it's like, okay, when they first announce it, they tell you nothing about the game, and you know, people are like, are we supposed to be excited for this? And then like a few months later, they reveal a second trailer that looks really cool, and everyone's like, all right, yeah, I'm excited for this. And then a week before the game comes out, they do a Nintendo Direct that spoils everything in the entire game.
Yeah, it sounds about right, but I saw a little bit when I was putting together your preview, and I don't think it spoils that much. Like, there's a few cutscenes, but I don't feel like it's huge, like it's like big reveals or anything like that. Just funny, small character bits. So hopefully that should be okay. Just there's an idea of what you can expect. But let's go ahead and get to our questions. And first up, we have Ace Strategist, who says, is collecting materials easier and less random than in Xenoblade 1?
Well, first off, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for asking so many questions. Second, material gathering is a little bit different. Basically, the way that it works is that similar to X, you have field skills. And going from those field skills, you're able to do certain actions on the field that make collectibles appear. From doing one of these actions, you can get like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 collectibles at a time. Basically, based on the action that you are doing and where you're doing it, you will get different items. So I do feel like it is less random, and I had less of a hard time getting everything in an area.
Mm-hmm. And I also heard from my time with Nintendo with the Treehouse that they said that there's different, I guess, blades that actually have skills that will make something a little bit more likely to show up. So I think that might make it easier as well.
I haven't seen that, but I do know that different blades have different field skills, and that as they get stronger, those field skills level up. So your blades actually are used for things like puzzle solving as well as material collecting.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. Next up, we have a Hidden Shadow who says, thoughts on the English voice acting? Should we play with the dub or the subs?
Well, I've always been a believer that that's all personal preference. I can't tell you which language you prefer. Nintendo of Europe localized this game, so we are back to having a general UK-based voice talent cast. Personally, I think the voice acting is very good, but it might take a little bit of getting used to because they have some pretty thick accents. A lot of the actors this time around have Scottish accents, which is thicker than kind of the London England-based talent that did the voices for the original Xenoblade. So my answer is, I like the voice acting in English, but it might take a little getting used to if you're not used to thick accents and things that you've watched.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Next up is Real Baus Zakaruga, who wants to know, obviously without going into spoilers, is the game more lighthearted than previous Xeno games?
Without going into spoilers, I think the story just has a good mix of humor as well as serious moments. It's really the same tone as other Xeno games. I wouldn't really say that it's different. I wouldn't say that, you know, because of the visual style, it's not going to have a serious story. Again, I'm comparing it to Wind Waker again, but Wind Waker has one of the more serious stories in Legend of Zelda, despite what its visual style is. So I'd say it's kind of like that.
I think that makes sense. I don't, like, we've seen funny scenes, but obviously it's going to get a little dark here and there. I fully expect that.
Yeah, of course.
Next up is Cream Basics, who wants to know, based on what you've seen so far without spoilers, people are very curious about the story, has Xenoblade Chronicles 2's story been as impactful as the original Xenoblade story?
It's hard to say out of, you know, comparing the first however many hours of each game to the first however many hours of another game, so I don't want to, like, for sure say, like, oh yes, it's excellent, because I don't know where it's going to go, but of course, based on what I've seen, my whole thing is that yes, I'm invested in the story, and yes, it got going soon enough. That's really all I want to say about that.
Okay. Next up is Ryan Matlis, our good friend, who says, Yo, yeah. Derek Emile, as someone who didn't really enjoy the first Xenoblade Chronicles due to how the game worked and just how dang big it was, do you think this game does enough change to where someone like him could actually enjoy it?
That guy doesn't enjoy anything, though. But no, I'm kidding. Seriously, love you, Ryan. I will say that if you felt a little bit overwhelmed by just how big and spread out things are, I do feel like the areas are a bit more consolidated. They're still massive, definitely. But I do kind of feel like the early areas are small enough that you can kind of get a feel for things. I kind of touched on this a little bit in the preview as well. So, I don't know if you would inherently like it, because it is very much a lot like the original, but I will say that it does kind of ease you in a lot better.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Next up is Ark and Rock, who wants to know, can you change a driver's clothes?
From what I've seen, actually no. Equipment is done in the form of accessories, and yes, you do visually see changes in your character based on, blades that you've equipped, though, because they will actually be holding that weapon and all that, but when it comes to their actual clothing, no, they pretty much stay the way that they are. Blades also do not change.
And Tanner LP wants to know, who is your Blade waifu so far?
Well, I mean, I can't really dress up and play fashion show like I could in the other games, though, but... Oh gosh, this is going to be such a tough answer. I thought about this beforehand, and I'm like, nah, I got this, though, and I'm like... It's really weird, though, because if I say I like Pyra, I know what people are going to immediately jump to. But she is legitimately a good character. But if I'm like, I like Pyra, they're like, oh yeah, I bet you do, just like you like Daisy. But, boy, okay.
I guess, how does Nia and Poppy compare?
Well, Nia's not a Blade, but...
Well, I know she isn't Blade, but at least she's a possible waifu.
She kind of is. Poppy is really funny, though, but I don't really want to say too much about her for people that don't know about her, so I'll just say that so far I haven't found myself especially disliking any character, I guess.
That's a good way to be. Next up is Shocking Riveros, who wants to know, how does it feel as an on-the-go experience compared with Breath of the Wild? So have you had much of an opportunity to play it in handheld mode?
Yes, I have. Playing in handheld mode, I don't really notice any performance issues, but I do notice the image quality goes down a bit, like stuff in the background changes a bit, kind of like in the original Xenoblade, how some areas in the distance were technically like, 2D sprites and stuff like that. I kind of feel like they do that a bit in this game when it's running in handheld mode. There's really no reason you can't play it in handheld mode, though. I'm just stammering over my points, though. But yeah, performance is great. Visuals do noticeably downgrade, but it's portable, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It's a fitting exchange, I guess. It still works out as well as you can expect for something this massive. We have Wakim, who wants to know... Oh, I guess we should have had this after the previous question, not the last question. Who is the hottest dude in the game?
Tora!
Tora! I can buy
answer.
it. I can believe it. Tora is all that is man.
Yep.
All right. Oxyacid has a question. He wants to know, or she wants to know, how is Rex as a protagonist? Is he enjoyable and has some depth, or comes across as generic as his design suggests?
I'm gonna say that his character design, there's a lot of reasons why he looks the way he does that make a lot of sense when you actually play the game. I wasn't super wild about him at first either, but I feel that way now. As for his personality, he is really, sassy and, has some really good quips on him. He's made me laugh out loud a few times, and I kind of like the fact that he's a little bit hot-blooded and everything. He is still a kid, so he's not I think that he's kind of a good converse to Shulk in that he's younger, but he's still, intelligent, but he's, a lot more hot-blooded than Shulk was, I feel like.
And Shulk could get hot-blooded if certain things set him off, but I see what you mean.
Yeah, he always has, really sassy remarks at, things happening where, I don't want to spoil a joke, obviously, though. I keep saying I don't want to spoil stuff, though, so I need to stop being redundant with what I'm saying, though, but it's me, so. But that is how I feel about him. I think that he does have a lot of personality, and he is really fun. I don't know a lot of his backstory, though, but he's entertaining to watch on screen, and I think that's really what matters here.
Very cool. Continuing on, we have Guerrera26, who asks, how easy is it to get new blades?
Pretty easy. The game throws core crystals at you like they're nothing, at least the common ones. The rare ones are a lot more few and far between, hence the name. But yeah, it's pretty easy to get new blades. Getting a new blade that you want, on the other hand, I find that a lot of the time I have to kind of improvise with what I have, where I might like something about a blade but not something else about them, and have to kind of work on covering those weaknesses. So you're not going to become instantly overpowered just by getting a rare one, but the game does throw a lot at you that you can experiment.
It doesn't punish you for just trying things out, seeing what works for you.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. The game's honestly... I would say that I find it to be on the easier side. I have died a fair number of times, but I'm not dying like every 10 seconds like I was in X when I started that.
might help that they actually introduced how to play a lot of the game a little better this time around.
Yes, I'm very happy for the tutorials being better, because X was not very good at its tutorials.
Yeah. Alright, next up we have Bramblefire321, who wants to know, do any of the rare blades play a part and or interact with the story?
There are blades like Pyra who have story importance. There's more than just Pyra that's like that, but any of the random ones that you get, as far as I've seen, they just have an introductory cutscene when you meet them, and that's it. Can't really talk specifics about that because Nintendo doesn't want us to, but yeah.
Gotta follow that embargo.
Oh yeah. Actually, a bit of an aside. First time I ever heard of review embargo was I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, because it wasn't really a commonly circulated term at the time. I only had ever heard of the word embargo as a Pokemon move, so I'm like, oh yeah, there's a review embargo. I was like, so if you're reviewing the game, you can't use items?
I mean, it's not entirely wrong. Oh,
anyway,
goodness.
Next question.
Yeah, exactly. This one comes from XAOX, who wants to know, I'm actually kind of curious about this one myself. Can you possibly get a particular rare blade twice, or will getting a rare blade give a new one until you get all of them?
That I'm not sure about. I've gotten a few of them, but I have never gotten a repeat, and I don't know if that's just because I haven't played enough. I have gotten repeats of the regular common ones, but I think that's just kind of to be expected because they're pretty generic. So I don't know the answer to that question. I know that repeats can happen, but I'm not totally sure of the rare ones.
Okay.
I kind of hope you can obtain them twice, because it would kind of suck if you got them on a character you didn't want.
So let me go into that. So whoever you use the core on, that's who that they stay with? You can't just switch the blade from person to person?
Not as far as I've seen yet.
Okay, that's interesting. You got a little bit of strategy there. Next up is FS Durian, who wants to know, is it overwhelming? I watched all the gameplay videos, and it seems super giant and overwhelming, and I honestly don't have as much time as I used to.
If you were able to handle playing through Breath of the Wild as a portable experience, I do think that having this game on the go does make it a lot more accessible for people who don't have a lot of time. It is a super massive game, so if that turns you off, you probably aren't going to be super into it. But I do feel like the game tutorializes itself well. It does have a bit of a slow start because of that, but I don't feel like you're ever stuck not knowing how to play the game, and it's always giving you new things to learn. So I don't feel like you'll be overwhelmed on knowing what to do, where to go, how to play the game. But if you feel like the game would just be simply too big for you to finish, even with it being a portable experience, obviously I can't change your mind on that.
Next up, we have Greg the Rads, who wants to know, I'm still not entirely sure how the gameplay works after all the footage I've seen. Like, it looks very complicated compared to the first game. So are the controls and the combat simple to understand? That's what I'm trying to ask.
First of all, you read his Greg the Rad's username and not I wish I were a bird.
Well, I'll be going with the ats because the other names are kind of, they can go for forever thanks to the Twitter changes.
Okay, but still, I just had to bring attention to that. So, as for the gameplay being complicated, I feel like once you get used to it, I like that you're not having to scroll over to an attack and select it. Every action can be done in one button press. Switching a blade is on a button press. Using an art is on a button press. Activating, just any sort of effect is on a button press. So, in the terms of the interface, I feel like when you get used to it, it's fairly easy enough to understand. It's just that, of course, any battle is going to look really chaotic when you're just looking at it as a third person watching without actually playing for yourself.
Exactly. I feel like, they were showing the complex stuff because that's the most visually interesting, but it also looks complex because they're doing all this stuff. They're like, how are they doing this? What's going on? I don't understand. Help me. And then you actually play the game. It's like, all right, we're going to get you used to this, and then we'll introduce this next element. And so by the time you get to that where they were, now you can pull the same stuff as them, and it seems like no problem. At least that's what I hope the progress is.
It's just like when making a trailer, of course you want to show the footage where Tora's pulling a giant drill out of where the sun doesn't shine, shoving it in the enemy's face, and then Nia is like beating the crap out of everything while riding on the back of a tiger, and then Pyra's lighting everything on fire with her mind.
Yeah, that's way more interesting.
Yeah.
Well, continuing on, we have Javarana, who wants to know what happens to the experience that you choose not to gain by sleeping at an inn. Is it gone, or does it accumulate?
I actually want to compare that to The World Ends With You, where when you leveled up in that game, you would level up your maximum level, and you would just simply choose what you wanted your current level to be out of that maximum level. So, for instance, if your maximum level was 72, you could choose to be any level from 1 to 72. It's kind of the same way, where you just choose what level you want to be out of all the potential levels you could level up into. You can use that experience later if you want, but basically it allows you to do low-level runs if you wish, and make the game as hard or easy as you want it to be. So there's no more worry about having to play 100% completion, being ridiculously overpowered, not having a challenge. You can just simply choose to not level up, but if you find the game is too difficult, you can use that experience later and level up then.
That's a really cool idea to sort of just customize the difficulty exactly how you want it. As most Xenoblade games, and I'm sure this is likely still the case for 2, each level really matters in these games.
Oh yeah, it does, definitely. I've had plenty of fights that were ridiculously hard one level, and then by just leveling up one time, they became significantly easier to the point where I could totally do them.
So yeah, it's great to see. I'm actually really happy with that change and with that decision. Next up is oh boy, SWP2241, who wants to know, are the arts activated with X, Y, and B buttons, and can you change out the arts, and how do you activate a chain attack? So a couple questions in there.
Okay, the arts are activated with those buttons. The A button and D-pad have a few other actions mapped to them as well. Asking if you can change out arts, blades can have more than 3 moves on them. You can just only have 3 equipped at a time, so you are still customizing their movesets. Activating a chain attack is told to you at the very beginning of the game in the tutorials, where it says to use the plus button, but they don't become accessible for some time.
Alright, seems simple enough. Tony the Expert wants to know, how diverse are the locations compared to Xenoblade Chronicles 1, and is the story consistently getting flipped inside out like that game as well? Thank you.
As for diverse locations, every major region I've been to has been really different from one another so far. I'm a big fan of that. As for the story constantly getting flipped inside out, I'd say that there's been like 1, maybe 2 major twists so far. Nothing like super crazy though, but I'm sure they're saving it for the end.
Oh yeah, I'm sure of it.
But the story is engaging after a little while, is basically what I've been saying about it.
Minato Johns wants to know, how does the combat feel? Would you say it's slower in terms of character movement, or is it just as fast, in quotes, as 1 and X?
Character movement speed is actually like something that changes over time a little bit. So if you kind of aren't loving it at first, though, that might change depending on like what effects you end up having down the line. I remember feeling like it was very slow in combat, just went on forever at the beginning of the game when I didn't have that many arts and I wasn't really able to do much in battle. But just as time went on, yet again, I feel like I'm saying this about everything, and I got the hang of it, more mechanics were introduced. Battles can get very fast and very chaotic to the point where I say it might be actually faster paced.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous what you can do, like when you really know the timing of everything and just have access to everything.
I'm so looking forward to playing this game myself finally.
Oh, you should be.
Eventually.
You should be.
Oh, goodness. Well, next up is Xenofan2017, who wants to know, is it more packed and interactive than Xenoblade Chronicles and X? They were huge, but in terms of interactivity, he felt it was pretty meh.
Well, I'd already said that you have field skills in this one, which are used for just more than collectibles. You are able to do some bits of puzzle solving in this one. There have been a few times where, I've used a field skill to, like, open an area or, like, figure something out. And then there have been other times beyond that where areas have presented platforming challenges and those sorts of things. I feel like the platforming is more common than it was before. Maybe not as common as X, where you can just do all these crazy jumps to get into places, but I do feel like the environments are more interactive.
Yeah, that's good to know. I know movement in general just felt better, especially coming off just playing the original Xenoblade. You know how they although jumps felt stiff, the movement with climbing was slow, and then I played a little bit with the treehouse and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so smooth and nice and flowing. It's great.
It doesn't quite feel like Mario Odyssey, but it still feels like it could pass for a platforming game at times.
Nice. Bull4098 wants to know, how does upgrading and changing arts work? Does each blade only have 3 arts to choose from, or are the arts shared within weapon types?
Well, I'd already mentioned that in an earlier question that blades do have more than 3 arts. You just switch out which ones you want to use. As for the weapon types, every blade has a weapon type and an element. The combination that you get determines what abilities it has. So even the common blades can be radically different from one another.
How does upgrading them work?
As you use them more, they get more points for upgrading those, so there's no more like having to decide, do I want to invest my points in, this class or that class, and if I choose wrong, then I just wasted a lot of points. It straight up is that every single blade individually earns points, so the ones that you use more will naturally level up more.
Okay, that sounds simple enough.
Yeah, it's actually very well handled.
Nice. Techno Mario wants to know, does the weather change in areas like in Xenoblade Chronicles 1? If so, is there any way to change it manually, or is it still random?
The weather is random, but there are ways that you can influence it. There is a feature that opens up at some point that makes it so that you are at least guaranteed to affect the weather in some way or another.
So you can just use that until you get the weather you want, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
That's a little better.
There is a slight cost for using it, though, but it is better than having to just keep reshuffling it.
Yeah. Because I know there was a few quests in the original Xenoblade was like, okay, it needs to be raining, but why isn't it raining? Or why is there comments going across? Like, come on, I want to fight this special monster.
Yeah, it was always really bad whenever a unique monster required it to be, like, raining in the early morning for you to find it.
Yeah. It's like, nope, not bothering. Moving on, we have Zerpet, who wants to know, can you get the same blade twice or multiple times? And if so, what happens with it? Like, do you get some money instead or other materials? Now, we already kind of answered this with the whole, yes, you can get the same blade twice, at least with commons. But what can you do with that duplicate, Emil?
If you get duplicates, of course, you can just hold on to it, though, but probably more than likely you're going to use a feature that hurls them into the grinder so that you can get resources from them.
And what are those resources you typically do?
From what I understand, generally they're upgrade parts for other blades, I think. I haven't used the feature much just because I've been trying to build up a collection, though, so I might not be the best authority on this, though, but I have seen an option that lets you basically throw away a blade if it's not what you want, it's taking up space.
Okay. Hey, at least there's an option. Ifkar Ahmed says, which Xeno game is this entry most similar to? Xenogears, Xenosaga, or Xenoblade Chronicles?
It's most like the original Xenoblade Chronicles, but that being said, there's a lot of similarities to Xenogears in there as well because of that. In fact, the one button press for like each action in battle and stringing together combos, it reminds me a lot of how Xenogears plays, actually.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, and I love Xenogears, so...
Oh yeah, it's great. It really is.
Nightowl Jim wants to know, is the music more akin to Xenoblade Chronicles or Xenoblade Chronicles X?
I would say more akin to the original, and not just because they're not like, we're stuck on a different planet, but not just because there's like, not like, rapping themes and stuff like that in the battles, but the original composers, that's Yasunori Mitsuda, Ace Plus, and Yoko Shimomura also did the music for this game, as we saw in that first trailer where they revealed the game back at the Switch presentation in February.
Yeah, and I hadn't listened to any of the music before this. I was trying to save up for it, but I did do some searching for the music for background stuff for the preview, and I heard some of it. I'm like, oh my god, I need to hear more of this.
It's very good. I do feel like initially it's not quite as catchy, but it's still very, very good. And there's some songs that I definitely already want. I've been debating maybe capturing my own footage to just have the songs myself.
Not a bad idea.
It's going to be a long 3-week wait for like the soundtrack to become available.
Mm-hmm. Matt Reynolds 98 wants to know, do the characters have as much personality as the ones in Xenoblade Chronicles? Can you still play as the other characters instead of just Rex?
I've already spoken my piece on the characters, feeling that they're very expressive this time around, but as for playing as other characters, yes, you can play as any character that you want, as long as they're a driver.
Cool. Ace Omni wants to know, has the loss of moving and auto-attacking simultaneously affected how you position characters and or the general flow of battles?
It does affect how I do things. You know, it has to be worth my time to move around, but I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. Maybe if you're doing attacks that require you to attack from the back, it might make you not like those arts quite as much, so I could see some people not going for those. But on the whole, I still do think that the general flow of battles works for what it is.
Cool. Garu SSB wants to know, can you change the UI in any capacity?
Yes, you can have tooltips on screen that tell you what each art does. If you don't want that taking up screen space and you already have it memorized, then you can just simply turn that off. And then the map can be as helpful or unhelpful as you want it to be, where you can play with no map at all, no navigation options, but you could also play with a mini-map, or you could play with a full-size map.
Yeah, it seems like there are plenty of different ways that you can customize things and based on how familiar you are with the game, which is cool. I like that idea because the game is big and beautiful.
If you just want a pretty clean HUD that's not covering up much, then you can do that, yeah.
Yeah. Next up we have Takoa Lamina, who wants to know, is the text in the text boxes as tiny as it was in Xenoblade Chronicles X? I had to move physically closer to my TV just to play the game.
No. Thank goodness. All right. I am going to drop a bombshell on you right here. The localization for Xenoblade Chronicles X actually increased the font size from the Japanese version. Not by much, but it did. So, yeah. But I don't know, I agree with you. Xenoblade Chronicles X, I had plenty of friends who said they couldn't play because they just couldn't see the text. Thankfully, it seems like that trend of microscopic font sizes in RPGs is going away, because the font size in this one is huge. It's bigger than the original Xenoblade. There is no worry that you would not be able to read it.
That's awesome.
And I'm very thankful for it.
Oh yeah, and your eyes appreciate it as well.
Yes. You're not going to get headaches from playing this game for a long time. You're not going to have to, go and get your eyes re-examined to get an updated prescription. It works fine.
Nice. Santiagox wants to know, how fun and good are the side quests?
Some of the side quests have surprisingly decent stories. Of course, they are side activities. I haven't had any side quests tie into the main plot as of this point, but I'm sure they will. All in all, I've never been lost in a side quest, and any difficulty came from the challenge of actually doing the thing that it wanted. So, yeah, I've been a fan of them so far.
ArcTray077 wants to know, are the heart-to-hearts fully voiced in this game?
ArcTray077. That's really backwards of it. Yes, they are. I am super glad for that, because 2 games in a row, that was probably my biggest grievance with the presentation. And this time around, yes, all heart-to-hearts are fully voice acted.
Oh, thank goodness. Because, I don't know, it felt like you were really missing some of the emotion of some of the scenes from the original Xenoblade when they weren't voiced.
Yeah, the original Xenoblade had some really good heart-to-hearts. X had some decent ones. There's a few that I really like, though, but definitely in the original, I was just like, could these be voice acted, please?
I wish. Next up is Dream Eagler, who wants to know, what's the resolution in TV mode?
Okay, I can't 100% tell you exactly what it is, just out of not having official word on this, though, but I actually analyzed a video recording of it that I'd made, and from what I can tell, the game is running in roughly 1080p at 30 frames per second.
Which seems pretty decent to me. I mean, obviously some people will miss the fact that it's not 60 FPS, but that's never been a huge issue for me.
No, I don't think any Xenoblade game has ever been 60 FPS, though, because the original was variable, definitely, because it slowed down a lot. Yeah. The 3DS remake was locked at 30, X was 720 at 30 frames per second, and then this one would be roughly 1080 at 30 frames per second.
Yeah, it might be one of those cases sort of like Mario Odyssey, where it's like 900p.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt if it's a little bit lower than 1080, though, but from what I can tell from analyzing the footage, it was pretty darn close to 1080 because I wasn't seeing repeated pixels or aliasing or anything like that when I was zooming in. Cool.
Well, people will definitely want to know, to hear that.
Oh yeah, it looks very nice, though, so regardless of what it is, it looks and runs very nice, and honestly, I'd rather have the frame rate locked at 60 than have it sometimes be... I'd rather have the frame rate locked at 30 than have it only sometimes be 60, but varying all over the place and messing with my ability to play.
Yeah.
So, I much prefer stable frame rates over high frame rates, if it has to be one or the other.
Yeah, agreed. David Duncan wants to know, can you tell us more about the Blade Affinity charts? Like, how deep does the customization go? Or if they're tied directly to side quests for the rare blade, or anything else interesting?
As for customization, you can choose what you want to level up on your characters on your drivers by spending points, but when it comes to the blades, they just kind of level up as you do things with them and as you grow closer to them. So it's very simple. It's basically just whatever sorts of things you want to do with them. Switching blades is again at the press of a button, so you can choose to focus on some rather than others. Just doing side quests with them in the party will cause them to gain points and get more skills unlocked.
Cool. Then we have Jazzron, who wants to know, does Rex have access to ranged weapons, and is Ether still the magic type stat of the game?
Ether is still the magic type stat. It'll affect if your healing arts will heal more, things like that. As for ranged weapons, any character can equip almost any weapon from what I can tell. I have an ether cannon for Rex that I sometimes use, so if you want him to have ranged attacks, you can equip a blade that has that.
Seems like there's a lot of options for the game, which is always great.
Yeah. Equipping different blades will change your stats, so, maybe equipping a ranged weapon to Rex would make him a little bit squishier, though, but maybe you want to make him tankier, so you could equip him with, a tank-type blade or something like that to make it so that he can actually take some hits and draw aggro. So you have a lot of customization in how a character actually plays. The default setup is more just a suggestion of a good direction to go with that character.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And for our final question, this one comes from Squirrel Emperor, who wants to know, Emil, are you really feeling it?
Duh. Okay, yes, I'm really feeling it.
From what I can tell, you seem pretty positive on this game so far.
Yeah, I hope it does well. I guess that's kind of on you to decide if it reviews well,
Yeah.
Kind of have a direct link here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm trying to get through Pokemon as quickly as I can. Still maintain quality, of course, but get through it as quickly as I can so I can start playing Xenoblade. And it's been kind of torture having it on my Switch for the past about a week now and not being able to play it.
It's delicious.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, someone's got to cover Pokemon,
Yep.
And it's great that you are, because yeah, I'm gonna definitely want to know a lot about that when it comes out. Haven't had the luxury of playing that one myself yet, though. But hey, I guess that's about it. I try to not be too redundant with my answers. I felt myself repeating myself a bit from the preview, but I'm guessing it's just, maybe people didn't want to watch the preview out of just, fear of hearing something they didn't want to hear and not realizing that the thing they wanted was in there. So I tried to, if I was repeating myself in the preview bit, I apologize. I was just trying to account for that. But I think that's really about it. Yeah, I think that's all the questions we chose for this Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Q&A, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Chugga, where can they find you at? I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. My name is Chuggaaconroy. Alright. And of course, make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Xenoblade Chronicles and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.